nights in small towns that feel wrong before anything has actually happened. The kind of nights where the air sits too still, where the street lights seem dimmer than they should be, where dogs won't stop staring at corners of rooms that appear completely empty. Detectives who've worked long enough to have seen the worst of what people do to each other, learn to trust that feeling. They don't call it intuition, they call it experience. And Detective Marcus Cole had 17 years of it. The Harlow County Sheriff's Department was not a large building. It sat on the edge of Route 9 like it had been forgotten there. A squat concrete structure with water stains beneath the windows and a parking lot that always smelled faintly of motor oil and old coffee. On the night of October 14th, Marcus was the only detective on duty. Dispatch was staffed by Terry Aldwell, a man of 52 who had perfected the art of sleeping upright in an office chair. Two patrol officers, Rodriguez and Pine, were making rounds somewhere on the south side of the county, responding to a noise complaint at a property on Elm Fork. Marcus was finishing a report he'd been staring at for 40 minutes. The words weren't coming. His coffee had gone cold. The fluorescent light above his desk flickered every 7 minutes. He had started counting. And outside, the wind moved through the parking lot in short, sharp bursts, rattling the chain link fence along the property line. It was 1:58 in the morning. He was thinking about going home. He was thinking about the leftover pasta in his refrigerator. He was thinking about absolutely nothing that mattered, which is exactly the mental state you're in when something that will change your life forever walks through the front door. The door opened. A man stepped inside. And Marcus Cole would later say, in the report, in the interview with the state investigator, and in the quiet of his own kitchen at 3 in the morning when sleep wouldn't come, that the first thing he noticed wasn't the man's face. It wasn't his clothes, though those would become important. It wasn't even the way he moved, which was slow and deliberate, like someone walking through deep water. The first thing Marcus noticed was that the man left no footprints on the rain-wet floor. He had come in from outside. It had been raining for 2 hours. Every person who had entered that building that night, Marcus, Terry, the two patrol officers, had tracked in water. Small dark patches on the linoleum, boot prints and shoe prints, the ordinary evidence of ordinary people moving through the world. The man who walked through the door at 1:58 a.m. left nothing, not a single drop. Marcus stood up. In 17 years, he had seen people come through that door in every condition imaginable. Drunk, bleeding, crying, furious, catatonic with shock. Once, memorably, a man had walked in wearing nothing but a shower cap, insisting that the moon was recording his thoughts. He had seen all of it. He thought he was past the point of being unsettled by anything a person walking through a door could make him feel. He was wrong. The man was approximately 40 years old. Average height. He wore a dark jacket, gray or charcoal, hard to say in that light, and dark trousers that looked as though they had been pressed at some point in the distant past. His shoes were brown leather, the kind that had once been expensive. His hair was dark, slightly too long, pushed back from a face that was, and this is the word Marcus kept returning to when he tried to describe it later, arranged, not calm, not composed, arranged. Like someone had placed his features in a neutral expression the way you'd arrange items on a shelf. He walked to the front desk. Terry Aldwell, who had been asleep, was now awake. He had the particular alertness of a man whose body had learned to snap to attention before his brain caught up. He was sitting forward, blinking. "Can I help you?" Terry said. The man looked at Terry for a moment. Then he looked past him, directly at Marcus, who was still standing beside his desk 8 feet away. "I need to speak with a detective," the man said. His voice was quiet, not a whisper. He wasn't trying to be quiet. It was simply a quiet voice, the kind that made you lean forward slightly without realizing you were doing it. "That's me," Marcus said. "Detective Cole, what can I do for you?" The man looked at him for 3 full seconds without speaking. Marcus counted. He didn't know why he counted, but he did. "I need to confess," the man said. "Confess to what?" "To a murder." Terry Aldwell looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at the man. The fluorescent light flickered. Outside, the wind hit the chain link fence with a sound like someone dragging their fingers across a wire cage. "All right," Marcus said, and his voice came out steadier than he felt. "Come on back. Let's talk." He led the man to interview room B. It was the smaller of the two interview rooms. A table, two chairs, a recording unit mounted on the wall, a mirror that looked out into a monitoring space where nobody was currently standing. The door had a standard lock and a heavy frame. There was one way in and one way out. The room had no windows. Marcus set the recording unit running. He sat down across from the man. "Can I get your name?" Marcus said. The man folded his hands on the table. His hands were very still. People under stress move their hands. They fidget, clasp, ring, tap. This man's hands sat on the table like they had been placed there by someone else. "Thomas," the man said. "Last name?" A pause. "Reeve," he said. "Thomas Reeve." "All right, Mr. Reeve. You said you want to confess to a murder. Can you tell me who was killed?" Thomas Reeve looked at Marcus with those arranged, neutral eyes. "Her name is Sarah Holden," he said. "She lives at 4 Mercer Road. Or she did, until tonight." Marcus had heard confessions before. Real ones, false ones, the kind that are half true and half performance. He knew the rhythms of confession, the way a musician knows the rhythm of a song. The hesitations, the justifications, the moments where someone reaches for sympathy, and the moments where someone shuts down and retreats. He knew what a person who had done something terrible looked like when they were ready to talk about it. Thomas Reeve didn't fit any pattern he had ever seen. He spoke in complete, measured sentences. He did not hesitate. He did not look away. He did not ask for water or a lawyer or a moment to gather himself. He simply described what had happened, in the manner of someone recounting something that had happened to someone else, or something they had read about in a book. There was narrative distance in his voice, a quality of detachment that made Marcus's spine tighten incrementally with each passing minute. "I was at the house at Mercer Road at 9:45 this evening," Thomas said. "Sarah Holden was home alone. She had returned from work at approximately 6:30 and had not left the property since. She cooked a meal around 7, pasta with a tomato sauce. She ate at the kitchen table. She read for approximately 2 hours in the living room. A book with a green cover, a novel, I don't know the title. She went upstairs at 9:30. Marcus had his notepad open. He was writing. He was also watching Thomas's face very carefully. "You were watching the house," Marcus said. "Yes." "From where?" "The tree line along the east side of the property. There is a stand of birch trees. They're close enough to the house that you can see into the lower windows clearly, and the upstairs bedroom window from a certain angle." "For how long were you watching?" "Several hours." "And then?" Thomas Reeve's hands shifted slightly on the table. Just slightly, the first movement Marcus had seen from them. "And then I entered the house," he said. "How?" "The back door. The lock is a simple spring mechanism, the kind you can open with a credit card if you know the angle." Marcus kept writing. His handwriting, he noticed, had become slightly smaller, a thing that happened when he was concentrating very hard. "And Sarah Holden, was she aware you had entered the house?" "Not immediately. She was in the upstairs bathroom. I waited in the kitchen." "You waited?" "Yes." "How long?" Thomas seemed to consider this. 4 minutes, he said. "Perhaps 5. And then what happened, Mr. Reeve?" The fluorescent light flickered. Thomas Reeve looked at the light. Then he looked back at Marcus. "I think," he said, "that you should go to the house before I continue. There are things at the house that you need to see. Things I can describe to you, but that you won't believe until you see them yourself. Mr. Reeve, I need you to..." The key to the back door is under the 3rd stone to the left of the back step. The stone is gray with an orange stripe across it. You'll see it immediately. The body is in the upstairs bedroom, on the floor beside the bed. She is dressed in a white nightgown. There is a window in that room, and the curtain is green, the same color as the book she was reading. Though that's coincidence, I think. He paused. "Go and see," he said. "I'll be here when you get back." Marcus stepped out of the interview room and called Rodriguez, who was still on the south side of the county. He told him to get to 4 Mercer Road. He gave him the information about the key under the stone. He told him to approach carefully and call in immediately with what he found. Then he went back to his desk and ran Thomas Reeve's name through the system. Nothing came back, no driver's license, no state ID, no criminal record, no utility accounts, No vehicle registration, no tax records. The name Thomas Reeve existed in the national database. It was not an uncommon name, but none of the results matched the man in the other room. The man sitting in interview room B at 2:09 a.m. on October 14th appeared, by every searchable measure, to not exist. Marcus ran him again. Same result. He sat back. His coffee was cold. He pushed it aside. His phone buzzed. Rodriguez. Detective? Rodriguez's voice had something in it that Marcus recognized. That particular quality of voice that experienced officers get when they have seen something that has moved the needle, that has pushed them past the professional into something more personal and more raw. You need to come out here. What did you find? A pause, longer than a pause should be. There's a key under a stone, gray stone, orange stripe, exactly like he said. Third one to the left. Marcus stood up from his desk. The back door was unlocked, Rodriguez continued. And detective, the pasta. There's a pot on the stove, dried out but still there. The plate's in the drying rack. And in the living room, there's a book on the coffee table. Green cover. I didn't touch it, but I can read the spine from here. Marcus was already pulling on his jacket. Don't touch anything. I'm on my way. Keep the scene. There's something else, Rodriguez said. And now his voice had moved past the professional entirely. It was quiet. It was small. She's upstairs. White nightgown. She's on the floor beside the bed, like he said. A breath. And Marcus, the curtain in that room is green. Exact same green as the book cover. I'm standing here looking at them both. Exact same green. Marcus stood very still in the middle of the bullpen. Is she alive? No, Rodriguez said. She's not. Marcus looked down the hallway toward interview room B. Stay there, he said. Don't let anyone in. I'll be 20 minutes. He walked to the interview room door. He put his hand on the handle. He thought about what he would say. Something about needing to step away, that he'd be back shortly, that Mr. Reeve should stay put. Standard procedure for a person who had just confessed. He opened the door. The room was empty. The chair where Thomas Reeve had been sitting was pushed in neatly to the table. The recording unit was still running. The door, the only door, had not been opened. Marcus had been 3 feet from it for the past 9 minutes. There was no other exit. No vent large enough for a person. No false panel. No hidden door. The mirror was solid glass backed by plaster. Thomas Reeve was gone. And on the table, placed precisely in the center, was a single item that had not been there before. That Thomas Reeve had not been holding when he entered the room. That should not, by any logic Marcus could apply, have been there at all. A green curtain ring, old brass, slightly tarnished. Marcus would later confirm it had come from the window in the upstairs bedroom at 4 Mercer Road. 4 Mercer Road was a house that had once been loved. You could tell from the garden, or what the garden had been before the late season frost had taken it, and from the small decorative shutters on the lower windows, painted a cheerful cream color that had started to peel at the edges. There was a wind chime on the porch, copper tubes that made a low, hollow sound in the October wind, and a welcome mat that said home in block letters, and flower boxes under the windows with the dead stalks of summer annuals still standing in the dry soil. It was, in every external way, the house of a person who cared about where they lived. Marcus stood in the driveway and looked at it for a moment before going in. Rodriguez met him at the back door. Pine was at the perimeter, keeping the scene contained. The county coroner had been called. Nobody else had been notified yet. He went inside. The pasta pot was there. Dried sauce crusted around the edges. The faint smell of tomato and garlic still in the air, mixing now with something else. Something colder. Something that Marcus's body recognized before his mind caught up with it. The book with the green cover was on the coffee table. It was a novel, a literary thriller, judging by the cover design. A strip of cardboard had been used as a bookmark, placed roughly 2/3 of the way through. She had been planning to finish it. Marcus went upstairs. Sarah Holden was 34 years old. She had worked as a purchasing coordinator for a textile company 40 minutes away. She had lived at 4 Mercer Road for 3 years. Her emergency contact, on a form at her workplace, they would later discover, was her sister, who lived in a different state. She had no partner listed, no roommate. She had, by all early indications, been entirely alone in this house on the last night of her life. She was on the floor beside the bed, exactly as Thomas Reeve had described. White nightgown, long dark hair spread around her head on the hardwood floor, the way hair spreads when someone has fallen backward. Her hands were at her sides, her eyes were closed, and the curtain in the window, the one closest to the bed, was green. A deep, particular shade of green that was indeed, without question, the exact shade as the book cover downstairs. Marcus stood and looked at both things, the curtain and the book cover he'd photographed on his phone, and felt the ground beneath his understanding of what had happened shift slightly, the way ground shifts in an earth tremor. Not enough to knock you over, enough to remind you that it can. What killed her would take the coroner another 16 hours to determine. When the result came back, it would add one more layer to what was already an impossible night. There were no marks on her, no signs of struggle, no defensive wounds, no indication of any physical cause of death. Sarah Holden had died of what the report would describe as acute cardiovascular failure of undetermined origin, a clinical way of saying her heart had simply stopped, and there was no clear medical reason why. She had, to every available measure, been frightened to death. By 6 in the morning, interview room B had been processed by every pair of available hands in the department. The recording unit had been pulled and reviewed. The tape, and this is a thing that Marcus would turn over in his mind for months, the tape had a gap, not static, not malfunction, not interference. A gap, a specific, clean gap in the audio record, beginning at exactly 2:12 a.m. and ending at 2:17 a.m. The 5 minutes during which, by Marcus's own account, he had been standing 3 feet from the only door of the room while Thomas Reeve disappeared from inside it. The audio before the gap was intact. Marcus's questions, Thomas's responses, complete, clear, every word audible. Then, nothing. Silence. Not recorded silence. The kind where you hear room tone and small ambient sounds. The complete absence of audio signal, as if the recording unit had been paused and then restarted. And then Marcus's voice saying, "Mr. Reeve?" and the sound of his footsteps and the door opening. And then nothing, because there was no one to record. Detective Lena Voss arrived at 7:15. She was Marcus's partner on paper. They had been paired for 4 years, but she had been on leave for a family matter and had been called back when the situation escalated beyond what a single detective and 2 patrol officers could manage. She walked into the bullpen, looked at Marcus, took in the particular look he was wearing, the look of a man who has been awake all night and has spent those hours confronting something his professional framework has no category for. And she said without preamble, "Tell me everything." He told her everything. She listened without interrupting, which was typical for Lena, who had a journalist's instinct for letting things unspool without touching them. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. "The name Thomas Reeve," she said. "You ran it. Multiple times. Nothing that matches. And the room. No exit. No mechanism. Nothing." Lena looked at the ceiling. Then she looked at Marcus. "What do you think happened?" It was the kind of question partners ask each other at the edge of the explicable, where the professional and the personal have to find a way to share space. "I think," Marcus said carefully, "that a man came in here last night who knew that Sarah Holden was dead. Knew it in a way that wasn't possible unless he was the one who did it. Gave us every detail, every specific, verifiable detail. And then he was gone." He paused. "And I think we need to look harder at who Thomas Reeve is, because that name means something. He gave it like it meant something." Lena was already at a terminal. "Thomas Reeve," she said, "let me try a few different angles." She started with historical records, property records, employment history. She cross-referenced with adjacent counties, with neighboring states. She tried spelling variations. She tried partial matches. She found something on her third search. Her face changed. "Marcus," she said. He came over. On the screen was a newspaper archive, the Harlow County Gazette, digitized edition, dated March 3, 1991. The headline read, Local man convicted in disappearance and murder of county woman. Below it, a black and white photograph of a man being led from a courthouse. The man in the photograph was Thomas Reeve. He was 40 years old in the photograph, dressed in a dark jacket, his hair pushed back from a face that was, and Marcus had to grip the edge of the desk when he read the reporter's description in the article itself. Eerily composed, almost arranged, showing no emotion as the verdict was read. The conviction was for the murder of a woman named Margaret Callow. The year was 1991. Thomas Reeve had been sentenced to life imprisonment. Thomas Reeve had died in Harlow Correctional Facility on October 14, 1994. 32 years ago, almost to the night. They pulled the physical case file from record storage in the basement. Old Greta, the records clerk who had worked for the department for longer than anyone could accurately remember, brought it up on a cart, wrapped in acid-free paper and stored in a gray archival box. She set it on the conference table and left without asking questions, which was one of the things Marcus had always respected about her. The file was thick. The 1991 case had been thorough. Whatever else you could say about the department in that era, the investigating detective, a man named Harold Marsh, who had died of a heart attack in 2003, had been meticulous. Every witness statement, every piece of physical evidence, every photograph was logged and cross-referenced with a precision that put some modern casework to shame. Marcus read it. Lena read it. Between them, over 6 cups of terrible coffee, they built the shape of what had happened 32 years ago. Margaret Callow was 28 years old. She had lived on the east side of the county in a rented house on a rural road. She had worked as a school teacher. She had been reported missing by her colleagues when she failed to appear at school for 3 consecutive days without contacting anyone. When police went to her house, they found evidence of a recent meal in the kitchen, pasta, the file noted, and Marcus and Lena looked at each other when they read that word, and a novel with a green cover left open on the living room table. She was found 6 days later in a shallow grave in the birch wood on the east side of her property. Thomas Reeve had been a neighbor. He had lived half a mile away on the same road. He had no prior record, no history of violence, and throughout the investigation had maintained complete, unbothered calm in every interview he gave. A calm that multiple witnesses described as unsettling. A calm that the investigating detective, Harold Marsh, had written about in his notes in one line that stood out from the rest of the professional language like a splinter. Subject Reeve does not look like a man being questioned. He looks like a man who is waiting. He was convicted primarily on physical evidence. Fibers from his home found on Margaret Callow's clothing, footprints in the birch wood matching his boots. He never confessed. He never showed any emotion. He served 3 years of his life sentence before dying of what the prison records listed as acute cardiovascular failure of undetermined origin. His heart had stopped. No clear medical reason. Marcus put the folder down. His cause of death, he said slowly. And hers. Lena nodded. She had seen it too. The same, she said. They sat with that for a while. The conference room was very quiet. Somewhere in the building, a phone rang and was answered. "There's something else," Lena said. She had a page from the file open in front of her. The date Thomas Reeve died, October 14th, 1994. And today, October 14th, 2026. 32 years, Lena said. Exactly. Marcus looked at the recording from interview room B, currently loaded on a laptop at the end of the table. The waveform on screen showed the gap. The 5 clean, flat, signal-absent minutes, bordered on both sides by the jagged peaks of recorded sound. "Who was he confessing for?" Marcus said. "What?" "He came in, he confessed. He gave us every detail. He sent us to the scene. He made sure we found her." Marcus picked up the brass curtain ring, which was sitting in an evidence bag at his elbow. "Who does that? What was the purpose?" Lena thought about it. "Maybe," she said, "it wasn't for us." They dug deeper into Sarah Holden's background because that was the next logical step, and because neither of them wanted to say out loud what they were beginning to think. Sarah Holden had grown up in the county. She had attended the local school system from kindergarten through high school. Her family had lived on a property on the rural east side, a farmhouse on a property that bordered, according to old land records, the birch wood where Margaret Callow had been found 32 years before. She had been, based on the dates in the records, 6 years old in 1991. And in the Harlow County Gazette archives, Lena found this at 11 a.m. while Marcus was on the phone with the state medical examiner. There was a small follow-up article from November of 1991, published after Thomas Reeves' conviction, a human interest piece about the impact of the Callow case on the community. There was a photograph accompanying it, a vigil held at the community center, candles, faces of local residents gathered to mourn. In the photograph, at the edge of the crowd, stood a woman who was clearly a young mother, holding the hand of a small dark-haired girl who was looking directly at the camera. The caption identified the woman as Mrs. Patricia Holden of Mercer Road. The little girl was not identified, but Lena had seen the photographs from the scene at 4 Mercer Road. She had seen the face of the woman in the white nightgown, and the girl in the photograph, age 6, dark-haired, looking at the camera with very direct, serious eyes, was Sarah Holden, 32 years younger, standing at the edge of a vigil for a murdered woman whose killer had just walked into their police station, confessed to her murder as though it were something that needed to be said rather than a crime requiring prosecution, and then vanished from a locked room. She was there, Marcus said when Lena showed him. She was 6 years old and she was there. And he knew her address, Lena said. He knew her schedule, her food, her book, the curtain color. He knew everything, the same way he knew everything about Margaret Callow. They looked at the 1991 file again. In the original investigation, Harold Marsh had noted something that he'd been unable to fully investigate before the physical evidence case was built and the trial moved forward. He'd written it as a footnote, almost an aside. Multiple witnesses reported seeing Reeve at various properties in the county in the weeks before Callow's death, in circumstances and locations that Reeve could not have easily accessed or had reason to be in. None of these sightings could be confirmed. The impression of witnesses was, consistently, that Reeve appeared to be watching. Just watching, for weeks. He's been watching again, Marcus said. Only this time, he wanted us to know. They went back to the house. It was mid-afternoon by then, gray and cold, the kind of October day that feels like the year is shutting down, closing something off, putting things away that won't be taken out again until spring. The crime scene tape was up. A sheriff's deputy was at the perimeter. The media hadn't arrived yet. The story hadn't broken yet. And the street was quiet in the way that streets in small towns go quiet when something has happened, and the neighbors know it but are keeping their curtains closed. Marcus and Lena went around to the back. The stone was still there, gray with an orange stripe, third from the left of the back step. Marcus crouched down and looked at it. Rodriguez had confirmed the key had been under it. It was in evidence now. But Marcus looked at the stone because Thomas Reeve had known it was there. Had he put it there, at some point, to make entry easier for himself? Or had it always been there, and he had simply known? And if the second, how? They went inside and up the stairs and into the bedroom, and Marcus stood in the doorway and looked at the space where Sarah Holden had been. The body was gone now, taken by the coroner. The outline of where she had lain was marked in tape on the floor. The green curtain moved slightly in a draft from somewhere. There were old windows in this house, not well sealed, and the movement of it made Marcus's chest tighten. He walked to the window and looked out. The back garden, the fence line, and beyond the fence, across a narrow strip of scrub grass, a stand of birch trees. White-barked, bare-limbed at this time of year, close together, slightly darker between them than the afternoon light should have made them. Close enough to the house that from a certain angle, if you knew where to stand, you could see into the lower windows clearly, and the upstairs bedroom window, from a certain angle. Marcus stood very still. In the birch trees, at a distance of perhaps 40 yards, there was a shape. He was almost certain there was a shape. The kind of shape that is almost definitely a trick of shadow and branch arrangement, that your eye assembles from pattern-seeking habit rather than actual evidence, that you dismiss the moment you look directly at it, because the direct gaze resolves it into its component parts. Shadow, branch, space between trees, and there's nothing there. He looked directly at it. The shape remained. He raised his hand to shade his eyes from the gray glare of the sky. The shape was gone. He stood at the window for a long moment. Then he took out his phone and photographed the birchwood. Later, when he reviewed the photograph, there was nothing there. Trees, shadow, the space between them. But in the photograph, at the very edge of the frame, there was something he had not noticed when he took the picture. A small thing, easy to miss. One of the birch trees had a mark on its bark. Not a natural mark. The bark of birch trees peels, splits, develops the characteristic horizontal lines that make them identifiable. But this was different. Someone had carved into the bark letters or a date, small, precise. He couldn't read them in the photograph. He would have to go into the trees to read them. He didn't go into the trees. Back at the department, the audio team had done additional processing on the interview room B recording. The gap, those 5 clean minutes, had been subjected to every available enhancement technique. There was nothing recoverable in the signal drop itself. Whatever had caused it had not left any analyzable artifact. But there was something at the very edges, right at the boundary of the gap, in the half second before the signal vanished and the half second after it returned. Almost inaudible, enhanced to the edge of intelligibility by the best processing software the county's budget could access. A voice, not Marcus's voice, not ambient sound. A voice. At the beginning of the gap, just before the signal died, a single word spoken at a register so low it was barely above infrasound, barely distinguishable from the background drone of the building's HVAC system. Wait, and at the end of the gap, in the half second before Marcus's recorded voice said, "Mr. Reeve?" And the recording resumed normally. 3 words, softer than the first, further away, as though the source was no longer in the room, as though the source was receding. "She'll know now." The audio technician played it for Marcus and Lena twice, then a third time. And then Marcus asked him to leave the room, and the two of them sat in the small AV room and listened to those 3 words on a loop, in the particular quiet of people who are trying to find a rational framework and keep coming up short. "She'll know now." "Know what?" Lena said. Marcus didn't answer, but he was thinking about Margaret Callow, who had been 28 years old, who had been found in the birchwood, who had been killed by Thomas Reeve, who had never confessed, who had maintained his eerie, arranged calm through every interview, every day of trial, every year of his 3 years in prison. He was thinking about the letter, because the file, the thick, meticulous 1991 file, contained in a back pocket of the folder a single sealed envelope that had never been entered into evidence because it had arrived after the conclusion of the trial, addressed to the department, and the contents had been deemed non-evidential by the acting captain of the time. Inside the envelope was a single page. On the page, in precise regular handwriting, were 3 sentences. "I will tell it when it is time. The right person will need to know before they find peace. Not for the law, for them." No signature, no return address. The postmark was dated October 14th, 1994, the day Thomas Reeve died. The case did not close. Cases like this don't, really. They go into a category that departments don't have good official language for. Open pending, no actionable leads, no suspect in custody, no clear mechanism of death, no explanation for the events of the night of October 14th. The state investigator came and went and filed a report that was thorough and carefully worded, and between the lines communicated precisely nothing. The coroner's report on Sarah Holden cited the cardiovascular failure and noted the absence of any determining cause, and recommended no further medical investigation since there was nothing further medicine could determine. The audio technician's report confirmed the gap and the recovered fragments and speculated in technical language about equipment malfunction, while privately to Marcus, admitting that they had no good explanation. Marcus continued investigating. He is thorough, like Harold Marsh was thorough. He believes in keeping at it. He found over the following months 4 things that he did not share in his official reports because he could not explain them in language that would survive professional scrutiny, but that he wrote down in a personal notebook he kept in his desk drawer. The first, the grave of Margaret Callow, located in the county cemetery where her remains had been reinterred after the 1991 investigation, had a visitor log maintained by the cemetery caretaker. Once a year on a specific date, Someone had placed fresh flowers on the grave. The caretaker could not describe the person clearly. He said only that the visitor came early in the morning before the cemetery opened to the public. The flowers were always the same, a small bunch of birch branches bare of leaves. The last entry in the log was dated October 14th, 2025, 1 year before Sarah Holden's death. The second, Sarah Holden's work records showed that she had requested a personal day on October 14, 2024. Her supervisor, when contacted, remembered this. He remembered because Sarah had seemed shaken when she returned the following day, and had made an offhand comment that he hadn't thought much about until now. She had said, "I think I saw someone I shouldn't have seen." He had assumed she meant a personal matter, an ex-partner perhaps, and had not asked further. The third, in the birch wood east of 4 Mercer Road, Marcus did eventually go to look at the marked tree. The carving in the bark was a date, October 14th, and below it a single initial, R for Reeve, he assumed. He didn't know what else it could be. The fourth thing he found was the hardest to write down and the hardest to explain, and he left it for last in the notebook because it was the one that still sat with him in the quiet of his kitchen at 3 in the morning when sleep was very far away. When the evidence bag containing the brass curtain ring had been returned to the department after forensic processing, no fingerprints, no DNA, no identifying markers. Marcus had signed for it and placed it on his desk. Standard procedure for unclaimed evidence pending case resolution. That evening, a cleaning crew had worked the bullpen. The evidence bag was moved, as sometimes happens, pushed to the back of the desk in the process of wiping down surfaces. When Marcus came in the following morning, the bag was back in the center of the desk, exactly in the center. The same placement as on the interview room table, the night Thomas Reeve had left it. The cleaning crew, when asked, had not touched it. They had not seen it moved. Marcus sat at his desk and looked at it for a long time. Then he picked up his notepad and wrote the fourth thing, and then he closed the notebook and put it in the drawer and went and got another terrible cup of coffee and got on with the day, because that is ultimately what you do. You get on with the day, even when the day has things in it that you don't have language for. Even then. It was 14 months later when the second call came, a different county, 112 miles away. A detective named Okafor, who had heard about the Holden case through the informal network by which unusual cases travel between departments, who had found Marcus's name in a lateral communication and called him directly. "We have a situation," Okafor said, "and a colleague mentioned your name in connection with something from last year. I want to know if what we're looking at sounds familiar." He described a woman, 31 years old, found in her home, no signs of injury, cardiac arrest, no determining cause. No one had reported her missing. The house showed evidence of a recent meal in the kitchen, a book with a green cover on the living room table, and a brass curtain ring placed in the center of the kitchen table. Marcus sat very still. "There's more," Okafor said. "We had a man come into the department the night before she was found. He walked in late, confessed to a murder, gave us her name, her address, details we had no way to verify until we went to the scene. Every detail was exact." "What was his name?" Marcus said. "He gave us a name," Okafor said. "Reeve. Thomas Reeve." Marcus closed his eyes. "He didn't stay," Okafor said. "He was in an interview room. The door was locked, no window. When the officer went back in, gone, and there's a gap in our recording, a clean gap. 5 minutes." Marcus exhaled slowly. "Does the woman, the victim, does she have any connection to a case from 1991? A murder case? A woman named Margaret Callow, Harlow County?" Silence. "How would you know that?" Okafor said quietly. "Because of what I found," Marcus said. "The victim's family. Is there any record of them living in Harlow County in 1991? Another silence. "I'm going to need to call you back," Okafor said. He called back in 40 minutes. The woman, the second woman, had a mother who had attended school in Harlow County in 1991, who had been at the time 8 years old, who had been in the same school as a girl named Sarah Holden. They had been classmates. Both of their mothers had attended the vigil. Both of them had been in the photograph. Marcus found the photograph again, enlarged it. 2 women at the edge of the crowd. 2 small girls, one 6, one 8, the 6-year-old looking at the camera. the 8-year-old with her face turned toward the older woman, held against her side. He looked at the photograph for a long time. He thought about what Thomas Reeve had said in the audio at the edges of the gap. "She'll know now." He thought about what the letter had said. The right person will need to know before they find peace. The right person? Who needed to know what? He thought about Thomas Reeve, convicted of a murder he had committed and then never spoken of, who had died in a prison cell with no confession made, no remorse expressed, no peace offered to anyone who might have needed it. And he thought about the fact that Thomas Reeve, dead 32 years, was apparently now offering something. Not to the law. Not for the law, for them. For the women who had been children at the vigil, for the ones who had grown up in the shadow of what he had done. He was telling them one by one that he had seen them, that he saw them still, that he knew. Marcus did not sleep that night. Over the following 18 months, Marcus found 3 more. 3 more women, 3 more county departments, 3 more calls from detectives who had somehow heard of his case, who were holding photographs of unlocked back doors and green-covered books and brass curtain rings, who had recordings with 5-minute gaps and names and addresses given in perfect verifiable detail by a man who had vanished from locked interview rooms. All of them had the same cause of death. All of them had been at the vigil. Not there personally. They had been children, most of them. Some of them not yet born, but connected to parents or relatives who had attended that night in November of 1991. Women who had grown up in the orbit of what Thomas Reeve had done to Margaret Callow, who had perhaps never known the name, or had been told it once and let it recede into the layered sediment of family history, who had certainly never known that what had happened was still happening to them, until it was. Marcus built a map. He put it on the wall of his home office, not the department, because this was no longer a thing he could put on a department wall without being referred for a psychological evaluation. And he was quite clear-eyed about that. He mapped the women, their hometowns, their connections to Harlow County, and to November 1991, and to each other. He mapped the dates of the confessions, all October 14th, or within 48 hours either side. He mapped the distances from 4 Mercer Road. The map looked like a web, or like something radiating outward from a center. The center was the birchwood where Margaret Callow had been buried. He filed his reports correctly. He shared his information with the other departments through official channels. He gave the state investigator everything he was supposed to give. He was professional throughout. And on the evenings when he sat in his home office and looked at the map, he thought about something that Harold Marsh had written in 1991 in the footnote about the unconfirmed sightings of Thomas Reeve in the weeks before Margaret Callow's death. The sentence he had read the first time without fully registering its implication. The impression of witnesses was, consistently, that Reeve appeared to be watching. He was watching, Marcus thought. He was watching before and after. And something about the watching, something about the years between, the decades of watching from places he should not have been able to be, was catching up with the people who had grown up within the radius of what he'd done. He is sorry, Marcus thought, and then corrected himself, because sorry was too simple. He is completing something, Marcus thought, something that was left unfinished when he refused to confess. And the thing he's completing isn't justice. The law already handled that part. The thing he's completing is... He sat with it. The thing he's completing is acknowledgment. He needs them to know that he knows what he took, that he saw them in their smallness and their proximity to grief, and that this knowledge is the only thing he has left to give. And the giving of it, Marcus thought, turning off the light above the map and sitting in the dark of his home office, is killing them. Marcus found the last entry in Harold Marsh's 1991 case notes on a Tuesday in February, 14 months into his investigation. He had read the file dozens of times. He had never noticed it before because it was not in the main file. It was on the back of a photograph, a crime scene photograph from the Margaret Callow scene, written in pencil, faint enough to be invisible under standard office lighting, but visible if you held the photograph at the right angle to a natural light source. He found it because he had taken the photograph home one evening and was sitting at his kitchen table, and the afternoon sun came through the window at the right angle. Harold Marsh had written 5 words on the back of the photograph, 5 words that he had evidently not felt able to put in an official report, that he had not told anyone, that he had written on the back of a photograph and filed away where they would not be seen or questioned. 5 words. Marcus sat at his kitchen table with the photograph in his hands and read them. He told her he was sorry. He sat there for a long time. Outside, the February afternoon went gray and then dark. He didn't turn the kitchen light on. He sat in the dark with the photograph and read the 5 words over and over, and thought about Thomas Reeve in an interview with Harold Marsh in 1991, maintaining his arranged, neutral calm, never confessing, never breaking. Except apparently once. Apparently in some moment that Marsh had witnessed and not been able to enter into evidence and not been able to speak to professionally, and had written in pencil on the back of a photograph where it would wait for 35 years to be found. He had said he was sorry, and Marcus understood finally what this was. Not revenge, not haunting, not the working of some malevolent will bent on extending its damage beyond the prison cell and the grave. Thomas Reeve was not doing this to hurt the women. He was trying to do what he had not been able to do in 1991. What he had done once, apparently with Marsh, in a moment too human to survive official record. He was trying to say he was sorry, and the thing carrying it, the weight of it, the accumulated guilt of it, the 30 years of unconfessed knowledge pressing through whatever membrane separates the here from the not here, was more than a living body could absorb without the shock of it becoming, in its own terrible way, fatal. It was too much. The acknowledgement was too much. He saw them. He had always seen them, and being seen by that was too much. Marcus put the photograph down on the table. He thought about the green curtain, the key under the stone, the curtain ring on the table, small things left behind, the detritus of someone trying very hard to make themselves understood. He thought about Sarah Holden with her book, 2/3 read, a cardboard bookmark holding her place. She hadn't finished it. He picked up his phone and called Okafor. "I think I understand what's happening," he said. "What is it?" Okafor said. "He's apologizing," Marcus said, "and it's killing them." Silence. "What do we do?" Okafor said. Marcus looked at the photograph on his kitchen table, the 5 words in pencil on the back, the afternoon dark, the empty house. "I don't know," he said. "I genuinely don't know. There are things that happen in the world that don't resolve the way they're supposed to. The mystery doesn't close. The case file doesn't get stamped and shelved. The person responsible doesn't face a consequence that the law can process and administer. The answer, when you find it, is not the kind that makes you feel better or safer or more certain about the nature of things. Sometimes the answer is just the answer. Sitting there, small and terrible and sufficient. Sarah Holden was buried on a gray afternoon in late October in the county cemetery with a small number of people in attendance. Her sister, who had come from out of state and stood through the service with her hands clasped and her face very still, and a few colleagues from her work, and Marcus, who was not family but who came because he had been the last person to speak with the man who had been there when she died. And he felt that someone who knew the full shape of it should be present. He stood at the edge of the gathering and watched the service. He had been to funerals before, plenty of them. Victims' funerals, colleagues' funerals, the funeral of a partner he had worked with for 6 years before the job took something from him that didn't grow back. He knew how to be at funerals. He still found this one difficult. When it was over and the small group dispersed and the gray afternoon settled into the quiet of an empty cemetery, Marcus stood by the headstone for a moment. He didn't say anything. He wasn't sure what there was to say. He looked at the cemetery path that led away from the grave section toward the parking area near the entrance. There was a figure at the far end of the path. It was too far to see clearly. A man, he thought, standing still, watching, in a dark jacket. Marcus looked at him. The figure did not move for a long moment. Then it turned and walked away, past the edge of the parking area, toward the tree line beyond the cemetery wall, and was gone. Marcus stood there. After a while, he walked to his car. He sat in the parking lot for a few minutes, keys in hand, not starting the engine, looking at the tree line. Nothing moved. He started the car. He drove back to the department. He finished his report. He went home. He ate something. He sat at his kitchen table for a while. He did not sleep well. He hasn't slept well since October 14th. He doesn't think he will for a long time. Some things you carry, That's all. Some things you carry because there's no mechanism for putting them down, no form to file, no official designation for what they are. You carry them because they happened, and because you were there, and because the alternative, deciding it didn't happen or that it means something manageable, is worse than the caring. He carries it. He goes to work. He gets on with the day. Somewhere, Marcus is fairly certain Thomas Reeve is watching, and somewhere in a cemetery or a birch wood or the margin of a parking lot after a funeral, he is looking for the next one.